Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today's video will be updates in the plant room. I'm going to show you an update of every tree in the plant room here. So here we go. I'm going to start in the furthest corner here. Back here is my aloe bonsai. You can see it through here. And it's getting lots of really cool aerial roots on it. I'll try and show you those. So if I fly in here, I'm hoping you can see the root base there. And there's tons of aerial roots coming down, which is really exciting. It's going to be a really interesting bonsai someday. Up front there, I've got a palm tree. You can see the couple of leaves on it. My Fukian tea here did not survive its severe root pruning. It was dying anyway, and I thought, well, I'll just try a severe root pruning, kind of plant it as a cutting and see if it survives, and it didn't. My bougainvillea here is still flowering. Some of the older flowers are falling off now, but there's even new flowers coming out on it. It's just amazing. It's also starting to grow in some leaves here. It may be hard to see some of these trees. They're so packed in here. Behind the bougainvillea here, I have jackfruit. So you can see the two leaves up top here. And I've got, if we go down below, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them growing in a pot there, that rectangular pot. And they're doing well. I don't know if there's anyone growing a jackfruit as a bonsai, but I am. Apparently I'm growing 5 of them. Here's my willow leaf ficus. I've got to spray this, I think. It's got some stickiness on the leaves. I don't know if it's scale. Maybe it is. I don't know. Or mites or something. There's something on there. It needs spraying. It's doing all right. It's just losing a lot of the older leaves. So we'll take care of that. Behind that is, oh, what's it called? The one Kale gave me. Parrot's beak. You can kind of see the V-shape back there, that little tree. It's doing all right. It's doing quite well, in fact. And then there's my rock accent plant planted in a pot there. Yeah, there's my parrot's beak. And then that accent planting. That takes care of this back corner here now. So over here I've got my very first bonsai, my Ficus microcarpa that I grew from a seed. It's just kind of chilling in here. It hasn't really grown a lot over the winter. There's a little bit of new growth maybe, but yeah, there's a little bit, but not much. It's just sort of dormant in here. Same with the Schefflera here. Hasn't grown a whole lot. It's just kind of dormant here in the plant room. Usually, come closer to the end of January, things start taking off in the plant room here. The days get longer, and I get more sunlight coming in the windows here. And you tend to get more sunnier days in, February. And everything in here usually starts really growing like really fast. So it's a good time to repot is just before that, sort of halfway through January, if I repot in here, and then you get all that nice sunny warm weather in, late January, early February, and they seem to recover quite well. So yeah, so they're taking up a lot of space in the plant room, my ficus and my Schefflera. Out front I have my Ficus rumphii. I gave it quite a severe pruning before I brought it into the plant room for the winter, and you can see it's sprouting out now on all the branches and trunks. My pink pixie bougainvillea here, let me just get it out. It's doing really well. All the new leaves are growing in. There's kind of the silhouette of it. Here it is in the light. Yeah, quite exciting. Interesting tree. Doing well. So I'll put that back. On this table here, I have my guava tree. It's here. It's grown quite a bit in the winter, actually. It's doing quite well. It's kind of shed all its older leaves, and it's growing quite actively. So the guava tree is doing well. My Ficus bengalensis here is doing well. It hasn't grown since I brought it in, but it's doing well. There were a couple of leaves on the bottom that turned yellow and fell off. Other than that, it's just sitting there dormant, probably waiting for more light. I've got Natal ficus cuttings. These are from Derek. There's one here, and I have another one. These are to plant on my temple planting. Here is my ficus, my Natal ficus that I am planting on the temple planting also. So this big tree here, I basically cut off all the roots and are regrowing a new root system, a finer one that I can then wrap around the temple. So that'll be coming, this planting of that, of the temple and everything. There's a few cuttings in here. My Ficus benjamina and my pink pixie bougainvillea cutting for Aaron there. I've got my Norfolk Island pine forest here. It's doing quite well. No problems with that. My Christmas cactus, well, Christmas is over and the flowers are beginning to fade. Oh, there's a new one. That looks spectacular. Wow. Yeah, quite a sight when they all flower. Over here I've got my yucca forest. I did the big chop in the summer. I waited, I think, almost 3 years before I decided to do the big chop. I wanted it to gain vigor, get really strong, cut it off, real, hard pruning, hoping it recovers, and it did. It's really filling out nicely. In fact, there's a few suckers from the base down there that need pruning off to kind of clean out the design. I'll be repotting this one also this summer. It's getting the soil bulging up in the middle with the roots, so I've got to repot it, root prune these trees. But they're doing really, really well. My little Ficus religiosa here, it still has a bud coming out here and one over here on this other branch. They're coming. It's just taking its time. Doing quite well. This is a very old one. Probably 24 or 5 years old. Something like that. And it's very small. Behind that I have my penjing, my Chinese village penjing. It's doing all right. The moss isn't doing really well because it's a little dark back here. It's a little weedy. But the trees are doing all right. You can see there's a little bit of new growth on them. My root over temple Ficus benjamina here is doing quite well. It has a lot of new growth on it. You can see all the light yellow leaves. That's all new growth this winter. When the sun's shining, they get lots of light back here. So it's doing all right. It's getting a little weedy, but I can't really reach it to weed it. I can reach it to water, but not to weed very well. In front of that is my Portulacaria afroforest. It got the severe hard prune back, and it's all sprouting out now. So it's looking quite good. I really roughened up the trunks on them, and that's looking nice and rough, and I'm liking that. I did a lot of roughening up here, but it's kind of smoothing out again, but it's still got an element of roughness to it. All the other trees are looking really good too. I got some new succulent there that I've just sitting there. So it's doing well, this forest. My plan for this forest, right now it's in a mica pot, and I want to make this really a show-worthy tree someday. So I'm thinking that nice kind of tan-colored tokonomi pot I got would look really good with this forest. And I may not be able to include all the trees in it, but I can pick and choose the best ones and rearrange them and make, quite a nice forest out of it. Behind here is my Davii ficus, my Natal ficus. It's coming out. I pruned it before I brought it in for the winter, and it's sprouting all kinds of new branches on it now, which is exciting. So doing well. In front of that is my Natal plums, and I give those a really severe pruning, almost taking them from big bushy plants back to sticks, and they're sprouting new leaves and branches on them now, so that's good. Here is my tiger bark ficus from the Tropical Expression workshop. I did a big cut up top on it, pruning the top back to a stump, and it's growing new branches in now. So that's exciting also. Beside that is my hibiscus. That got a severe prune, and it's sprouting out all over the place now, which is good. It'll have a nice, compact, dense canopy on it. Behind that is my Premnus. There's the original tree, and I cut a giant branch off of it and planted it as a cutting, and the cutting is growing and the original tree is growing. So there's a lot of work to come to that. I did a lot of root pruning on the original tree. So yeah, there'll be more work coming to that this summer. Beside that is my baobab trees right here and down here. So there's 2 in that pot. These are from that baobab that's growing in Hawaii. And I'm going to do my first repotting and pruning of this tree late winter. So before the buds start coming out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the tree and also root prune. And I'm going to try, a lot of people use cinnamon to seal the cuts. I'm going to try the rubber cement and just see how it works. That rubber cement has it has thinners in it, and that should disinfect the cut and it should seal it. I'm going to see if it works. I think it will, but we'll try it and see. In front of this is my medium-sized Ficus religiosa right here. It's been leafless for a while now, but you can see the buds are swelling. They're coming out soon. There's a leaf that's out there, just starting. In front of that is the tree that I used to know the name of it. I can't remember. Yeah, it's from Todd's Tropicals. I'm thinking it might be a powder puff tree. I could be wrong though. I was looking at the leaves and they kind of look like a picture of a powder puff tree that I've seen. I don't know the scientific name. Behind that is my Chinese privet. You can see it's really filled in since I last pruned it. It's looking very thick. The one trunk isn't doing as well as the other. The one over, I think that's the one out front. It has new shoots on it, but it's not real vigorous from the tip. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Over here, I've got my Ficus benjamina. This was in the basement, and the leaves, you can see, well, the leaves, they start getting cold burn on them, or they start suffering in the cold. They start getting kind of blotchy. That's when you know they're kind of suffering. Here's one that's kind of brown on the one side. So I saw that and I thought, oh, okay, it's time to warm it up. So I brought it back up into the warm plant room here, and you can see there's new shoots coming all over it now. It's breaking its dormancy, and it'll be growing with a lot of vigor soon. Over here, I have 2 hibiscus flowers. These are from the Fire and Ice hibiscus, and they're just beautiful. Just beautiful. These hibiscus are fantastic. I just love them. So it's doing really well. It's growing like crazy in the plant room here this winter. Beside that is my monkey ear tree forest. And I did a pruning of them before I brought them in the plant room here. And there's new shoots coming out on it, but nothing is really developed yet. And I think it's just too dark. I think they need, some good sunny days, and then the new leaves will come out. Well, there's one sprout here that's come out, but it's not real strong yet. Behind that, I have another little Ficus religiosa planted in one of Isabella's pots. It's doing well. It used to have no leaves, but now it's coming out. I don't know if you can see that in there. Right there. Beside that is it's a root cutting with a branch cutting grafted to the root cutting. And that is from the auction ficus that Ross has. So that's kind of a little memento from the auction ficus. And it's a tiger bark. It's doing very well. Beside that, here is my Dracaenas that I grew from a seed. And they're doing really well. They're, yeah, doing quite well. I'm excited to develop those into the future. Beside that is my Ming Aurelia, the cutting that Derek gave me. And it's developing quite well. It's thickening up. Doesn't look like a cutting anymore. It looks more like a tree. So it's doing well. Beside that, I've got my mesquite trees that Derek also grew from seed. They're doing really well. They're growing here in the plant room. Yeah, they're looking good. Nice sharp thorns on them. Beside that, I've got another baobab here. This one. And I have a hibiscus, Hawaiian hibiscus beside it. Beside that is my Brazilian rain tree. It's getting quite wide, but I don't really want to prune it in the middle of winter yet. I hope I can just let it grow for the winter and then prune it in spring. Beside, over here, I've got my, remember those pyracantha cuttings I took? And they all rooted, and now they're flowering. You can see the white flowers in here. Those are pyracantha cuttings. Now, they are supposed to be temperate trees, so they should be having a cool winter. But they were outside all fall, and they didn't grow. It was just too cool. So that was kind of like the winter. And now they're in the plant room here, and they're warming up and growing. So they think it's kind of like winter's over, and they're growing. They don't need a long cool period, a lot of them. So I think it'll be fine. As long as they do get some cool period in winter, they seem to stay healthy. Some people grow them strictly as indoor trees. So next winter, when they're a little stronger and they're in their own pot, I'll put them down in the basement for the winter, keeping them really cool for the winter. The only reason I didn't put them in the basement this year was in that same pot I've got Ficus rumphii cuttings, and I have my wild almond tree growing in there. So I can't, the Ficus rumphii needs the warmth for the winter, and the almond tree too. So I couldn't put the pot down in the basement. So okay, what else here? Over here I've got my powder puff tree. It's growing really, really well. I forget the name of the scientific name, Calandra, something like that maybe. But really nice. I've got Zinn's lychee trees here. Beside that I have the $50 challenge tree, the Ming Aurelia. It's looking good. It's doing well in the winter. Beside that, I have a cutting of that fire and ice hibiscus. And this one's planted in the glass pot. So you can see the roots. And, well, I don't know if you can see those roots. But you can see the roots through the glass pot. It's like a stained glass pot. It's doing really well. It's actually going to flower too. And beside that, let me just turn this around here. Beside that, I think, I could be wrong, I think this is a Australian bottle tree. It has like a bulbous base, and they look like those bottle tree leaves to me. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. Okay, I'm going to head to the other side of my island, and we'll continue the tour on the other side of the plant room. So here I go underneath. Crawl underneath this table, which is ridiculous, but I do it. Come back up on this side. So there's the side of the plant room we've already toured. So let's begin over here. So in here, I have my Socotra Island planting with my desert rose forest. They are just sitting dormant. Actually, the one over here looks like it's starting to bud out, but most of them are just kind of sitting dormant. And I can tell they're healthy because they have nice color in the trunks. They're kind of a greenish gray. And I haven't been watering them at all. There's enough humidity in the room here that they do fine over the winter with no water. And same with the baobabs. They don't need any water in the winter at all. In front of that, I've got my rubber tree that I'm keeping small, my rubber tree clump style here, little forest. Beside that, I have my carp oak tree, and it's quite tall. Yeah, so it kind of, yeah, it's a pretty tall tree. So I repotted that, and I'm waiting for it to strengthen up. So it's got good soil in here. I kind of worked the roots a bit. Once it starts taking off and growing really, really well, then I'll cut it back, probably like way back down to here. And I'll probably do that in early summer. So I'll get it used to the outside, have it nice and healthy, and then I'll just chop it. Okay, here is my Ficus religiosa, the big one. You can see it's coming back into leaf after I defoliated it, excuse me, and pruned it up. So it's looking really good, nice and healthy. The leaves are coming in very well. I did pinch here. I pinched, there's 2 vertical shoots here that were just taking off. They were like growing twice as much as any of the other branches. So I pinched the tips off those. I didn't want, this one trunk here is too thick already. So I wanted to keep that under control by pinching those tips. So just kind of balancing the vigor on that, and it seems to be working quite well. Over here I've got my old jade, the one I got from Hong. It flowered last year. This year it didn't flower. I think it's because I repotted it. I've got a green, I think it's a Green Island ficus here. Right here, it's a cutting off of Jay from Blue Jay Bonsai. Here is my Vietnam style Ficus microcarpa. It's planted in the 3D printed pot right here. I'm just letting it grow wild. The moss took off and it's growing all over the root base and the trunk. So I'm hoping to get all kinds of aerial roots growing in that moss. So when I finally do strip the moss off, I'll have all these cool aerial roots growing off of the trunk. Keeping my fingers crossed on that one. Beside that, I have another Ficus microcarpa cutting. It's an old one. I haven't done a whole lot with it yet, but it's growing. You can see all the roots growing out of the pot there, aerial roots. Doing really well. Okay, here's that other Natal Ficus that Derek gave me. It's planted, growing really well. Okay, on to the last flood table here. So in the corner is my baobab style jade, the short squatty one. It's actually looking really, really nice if you see it here. Looking really good. Really beefy trunk on it, short beefy trunk. Those branches have grown out really well. So that's pretty exciting. Beside that, I have a Portulacaria afra cuttings. They're doing well. You can see how kind of leggy they are. They're long spaces between internodes. The leaves look kind of sparse, and that's because it's not getting enough light. Even though it's right beside a south-facing window, we still don't get enough light in winter to keep these happy. They need full sun if you can get them, if they can get it. So I'm not pruning them. I'm just keeping them alive for the winter. Come summertime, they'll get cut down to kind of stumps, and they'll regrow over the summer. Beside that, I have my crown of thorns, the one I pruned recently, and it has all kinds of new leaves coming in on it. It's looking pretty good. There's my tamarind bonsai, or cutting, seedling. I wouldn't call it a bonsai, but seedling. It's doing well. I have a jade up front here that's doing well. There's an orange cat outside. It's not our one. There's my euphorbia, my new euphorbia, the killer species one. It's doing well. I have a Barbados cherry tree up there that I got from Aaron. It's doing well. My money tree here has the big, thick kind of tapered trunk. It's looking good. I sealed that with the rubber cement, and it really worked well. It's not growing. It's just sitting there dormant for the winter. One thing I noticed on these is that if you look at the underside of the leaves, there's little balls of sap or water. And I don't know if the tree takes up water from the trunk and it, excretes it on the leaves like that or what, but I noticed on several leaves. Kind of a strange phenomenon. Here is my, I don't know what this is either. This is some kind of succulent tree, or a tree-form succulent. I got that at a nursery, and it was a cutting off this giant tree they had there. Had a huge, rough bark-like base. It was a giant succulent, and it looked fantastic. So I thought, oh, I've got to get a cutting off that tree, because it was spectacular. Poinsettia's doing well, still in flower. They'll stay in flower right till spring. The flowers last a long time on these poinsettias. Here's my cashew trees. I noticed one wasn't doing well when I got it, and I noticed it died off. It had a sprout at the base, but it didn't do well. And I've got, I think this one died, but I've got two good ones down here that are growing really well. My jade over here, it's in a, these things are kind of weird. I don't know what the exact species of jade this is, but they tend to, every now and then, just all the leaves dry up and fall off. And I don't know if it's lack of light or lack of water or something, but it does this quite often, and then when it goes outside in the summer, it just recovers and does really well. So I don't know. Here's my mistletoe ficus, the one that Jay got me. It's doing really well. I was telling Jay when he was over last time that I didn't think it had grown much until I looked at the first video on this, and it's doubled in size. I couldn't believe it. And it used to have these figs on it. They turn a bright red. I don't know if there's a kind of an orange one there, but yeah, at one time the leaves were green and all the figs on it were kind of a bright red. So I guess that's why they call it the mistletoe ficus. It kind of looks like mistletoe. Here's another tree. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I think it's an African tree. It was from Jacques in our club, who visits Africa quite often. So I think that's some kind of African tree. I tried to find the species, but I don't know what it is. Here's a cutting off my Christmas cactus, and you can see it's in flower. It just has one flower. This is the first time it's ever flowered, so that's kind of cool. Here's a Natal ficus, Bert Davii ficus. It's growing a lot of aerial roots, and they've grown into the flood table. They soak up the water. So, yeah, that may end up on the temple planting also. Behind that is my coffee trees. They're doing really well. This is year 2 for the coffee trees. The trunks are getting a little thicker, and yeah, they're doing well. Beside that, I have a bougainvillea. This is the one with the light pink flowers. It's kind of dormant at the moment. You can see at all the tips there's green buds. So that'll come out soon. Here are the ground covers that Jay got me for Christmas, I guess. There's a ficus variety here, a creeping ficus, or a vine-like ficus. There's some kind of fern, a club moss or something like that here. And over here is the super miniature leaved ivy. Yeah, here's a look at the actual ivy, and you can see how small the leaves are. Amazing, just amazing. Beside that is my tiger bark ficus, the one I chopped off. It's the one that looks like an elephant. It hasn't grown much, but that green tip is still alive. So just hope it does well. Is that everything in here? I think so. Yes. Okay, so we're going to swing around now over to here. So here's a Ficus microcarpa. This is my Ficus cutting of a cutting. It's doing okay. The growth is kind of long and leggy. You can see large spaces between the leaves, so it's not very compact. So what I think I'll do is I'll just let it grow in the winter, and then when it goes outside in spring, I'll prune it back severely and then let new growth come in outdoors so it's more compact. Beside that is my Hawaiian hibiscus. I've got 2 of them growing in here, and this one is the most vigorous of all of the seedlings, and it's actually growing. It's never flowered yet. I think this is what year is this now? I think it's this summer coming up will be the 3rd growing season of it from seed. And you can see, you know, for something grown from a seed, it's pretty thick. It's doing well. I chopped one of them off shorter to see how it recovers. I think this one's been cut here at one time too. So yeah, they can take pruning fine. But yeah, I thought I'd leave this one grow and try and get it to flower. See what the flowers look like. Because it's this is a yellow hibiscus. It's the native tree of Hawaii. And this is really from Hawaii. So it's the true native tree of Hawaii. And I have another yellow one over there, which I got at a greenhouse, which is also yellow, but I don't think the leaves are the same. These ones, if you look at them, they have the real indentation here of the heart shape. You can see it even on a younger leaf. It really comes in here. Whereas the other ones are more of a spade shape. They don't have that same kind of leaf shape. So, yeah, I don't know. And this one seems to have bigger leaves. I haven't pruned it yet, so maybe with pruning they'll reduce. But because, on this one they're fairly small. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the variety or the growing conditions that have caused the leaves to go that shape. But we'll see what the flowers look like. Beside that, I have my Avatar style, or Ficus plain, it's called, Ficus microcarpa. And I did a lot of root work, repotted it this past year, and it's growing in up top. I'm growing this as like a flat top canopy. So that should look good. Beside that is my bullhorn acacia. I give that a severe pruning before it came in for the winter. And it is also recovering and growing and doing well. Behind that is another Ficus microcarpa, the one I call Fancy. And it's doing well. It hasn't grown a whole lot. It's kind of a little dark here. Yeah, so it's just sort of dormant for the winter. Once the growing conditions improve, I'm sure that'll just grow like crazy. Beside that, I have my Dancing Dragon Schefflera here. Now, I gave this quite a pruning. The front is over here, right here. It's growing in really well. All kinds of back budding. Looks really healthy, doing just super. So I'm glad that's recovered. Here is my Frankenficus, or my Ficus benjamina, that I have a fusion ficus. And it's doing really well. I gave it quite a severe pruning, and there'll be lots more severe pruning coming up on this to get my branches looking better. But I took steps after it was in the Toronto show to get my branches better, and it'll be a long-term project before I get it fully sorted out, but we'll get there one of these days. Behind that is my yellow hibiscus. I've shown you that. And I think, this one here. This is my Australian umbrella tree here. The one that I grew all the aerial roots on, and I chopped it down and picked a new front, the one that had the deadwood on it. It's growing in really nicely. I really like this tree. It's really cool. There's my deadwood at the back here. Yeah. And I think that's the whole tour of the plant room. Now, is still the downstairs, but I think that'll be on a separate video, and that's all just dormant. There's nothing happening downstairs at all. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, because downstairs all my jades, even though they're in the cool basement, it doesn't seem to slow the growth down on jades. They seem to grow just as well in warm weather as they do in really cold conditions. So yeah, the jades are growing really well downstairs. Everything else is just dormant though. That was an update of all the trees in the plant room here. Everything's doing quite well. I do have a bit of white fly on some of my hibiscus, which always seems to be the case. They attract white fly like nothing else. But I've been trying to get rid of that, and I maybe a few scale insects in some trees that I've got to get to. But other than that, everything's doing really well in the plant room here. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.